Tune in on Eurosport Live to watch this Flèche Wallonne. It's running a bit behind time. You can see all these people walking up the hill here. Well, in fact, we should have had the riders come through here. It's about 15 minutes or so behind schedule, maybe 18, 20 at maximum. And so we're going to look back at the Paris-Roubaix, so you can have a little look at that one if you missed it over the weekend. A very interesting race it was too. And then we'll come back to this program, picking up the live action as the riders come up the climb of the Fleche. They climb up this point 3 times in all in this Flèche Wallonne. I haven't yet found out if last year's winner Lance Armstrong has made it to watch the proceedings, but I hope you'll stay with us on Eurosport and come back for the live action in a moment.
Back live to the Grand Prix Wallonie with Liquor Pilsner.
Good afternoon to you and welcome to rather delayed La Flèche Wallonne for those you watching it live on Eurosport on this Wednesday afternoon. The riders, I think, many of them suffering from the pounding that they took in the Paris-Roubaix on Sunday, which has run up at nearly record speed. Certainly decided to put the lid on this one today, and that's why we're running a bit late. We've had a breakaway of some 20 men at the front of the field, and the bunch was really reactivated by the Once team, who are looking after the interests of Laurent Jalabert, who's come here to ride and to try and win this race yet again. He was the winner in 1995. Last year's victor, Lance Armstrong, those who follow cycling will certainly know that he's out of action for a chat with that cancer problem he's got, and so he will be not taking part in the race this year. And we keep our fingers crossed that we do see Lance back in action as a racing cyclist, but that is up to doctors. I spoke to him over the weekend, and he was saying that he's riding his bike gently, he's making good progress with the treatment, but there's no certain time that he ever get back and ride on his bicycle, but we keep our fingers crossed for him as he fights the cancer problem. So the field then will perhaps produce a new winner. Argentin, who won in 1994, is now retired from the racing scene. Fondres, who won in 93, has been very much in action this year, but he's had to retire with back problems. As you watch the riders come up here now, then who's going to win this race? As they come through this particular point, the climb of the Fleche, this is the first of 3 climbs they're going to make up this particular part of the course. They've covered since the start this morning 93 kilometres. They started at 11 o'clock, and they're coming through here, and we'll go round a circuit which will bring them back for the second and third time. What a great sight it is. All the colours of these riders now, not hidden by the dust which we had on Sunday. And no doubt you can hear the background, Daniel Monjas, the speaker, who works on all the promotions organised by the Société de Tour de France, who are the men behind this particular weekend Ardennes, as they call it, because after this one, on Sunday, we'll be having the Liège-Bastogne-Liège, which will be on Eurosport just an hour later on Sunday afternoon than bringing you the usual live broadcast that we do. But nevertheless, we've got plenty of cycling this afternoon for you, something like about 2.5 hours, I suppose, or 2 hours and a bit. And there we are back with that leading group of some 20 men. Live action from the Flèche Wallonne, which dates back to 1936. In fact, as we watch it from the helicopter here, it's actually changed its name several times and its direction as well. But it really is one of the coveted spring classics. A lot of riders come up here, having ridden like the Tour de Basque Country, will take part in this race and then go on to the Liège-Bastogne-Liège, the chaps who didn't want to be battered to death by the cobbles. And over the years, it's had, I say, so many different directions of the competition. It started out by going from Tournai to Liège, and then it went for a couple of years from Mons to Liège. Then it went for 3 years from Mons to Marcinelle, and then Mons-Charleroi, then Mons-Liège again, then Charleroi-Liège, then Liège-Charleroi, then Liège-Marcinelle, and it's had, what, Verviers-Marcinelle, Verviers, Mons-Spa. It's been going backwards and forwards until 1986, when Laurent Fignon won the race, which started in Spa and finished in Huy, and that's where we are now. So we've been, what, this 11th year of a more traditional course, settling it down, and I think they probably found the right mixture now, because certainly with the 3 climbs of the Fleche, it sorts the riders out. and I think they're enjoying this particular circuit now, and that I hope will remain as it will be for some time. There you see on your screen how far we've got to go, 78.360 kilometres. 80 kilometres is exactly 50 miles. This is the little group of some 50 riders that have clopped off the front, and we should be able to see just, there we are, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, yeah, there we are. Just looking at that composite of that break, the team's fairly well matched at the moment in the terms of riders that actually got in that little group. I'm waiting for confirmation from the race direct on what the gap is now. So I think it's too big and too soon, really, with about 50 miles to go for this little lot to stay away. They've got some more climbs yet to come, because the climb after the Puy, there's got another one at the Côte d'Amaille, then we come up the Puy again. We've got the Côte de Paillet, the Côte de Boisseau, and the Côte d'Argent, so there's some quite stiff climbs ahead of the riders yet. There we go then, that's your confirmation coming up. Thank you, Mr. Caption Operator. I must say, by the way, it's rather significant. There's a hell of a lot of riders in this one. I don't think that a group this size is going to stay away. Even with people like Puccini in there, the Swiss rider who's been the Swiss champion in the past, it looks very compact. They're going well. There's a lot of good class talent, and we saw the Once team driving after this one to pull them back. And so there they are. There's only 15 now. In fact, it was 20 men at one time, so it's coming down now, just 15 men. It's doing a stripping act at the moment. Well, I think they're all having a go here, and I'm interested to see that Veronka's got in this breakaway group, because he's one man who started the season off in tremendous form, taking the Grand Prix of the Overture, and if anybody is prepared to catch people out, it could be Richard Veronka. He's riding number 8 there, by the way, not wearing number 1 as the team leader, but he's clopped off in this little group at the moment. And again, as a climber, this sort of course will suit him very much indeed. Also, there you have a quick look at number 191, Puccini from the Refin team, a good climber as well. So it's a useful little break, this one. Inside the final 80 k's of the race, coming up then through Villers-le-Douai, and we'll be coming up again to the Mur de Huy for the second passage. We've already seen on the screen the look back at the first time they went over the climb. So that's our little group at the front. Yeah, we're coming down the bottom now. This is actually in the town of Huy, and then they start to go over the river, and then they go back up the climb for the second time. This is the River Maas, by the way, the one they're going over now, the River Maas. And 40 seconds is the gap. I think it's not enough 40 seconds. With 1 or 2 we can bounce across that little one, and we might find a bit of a changeover coming on here. Well, we saw those Lotto colours there over the weekend in fine form, and at the moment representing the Lotto team in the red and black shirts. Madouas from the Lotto team is in this little group at the moment. Rabobank must be very pleased with the fact that Sorensen, I didn't give you time, by the way, or I didn't have time on Sunday to tell you that Sorensen from the Rabobank team still keeps the jersey in the competition, the World Cup competition, after his ride in the Paris-Roubaix. He's decided not to ride this one today, Sorensen, because he wants to keep himself in good form for the weekend and to recover from the Paris-Roubaix, so that he'll be able to be in good form for the Liège-Bastogne-Liège on Sunday. Well, that's gives you some idea of the climb. It's 129 metres up from the Maas. Is the actual amount of climbing they do. Well, Frédéric Vasseur just stretching the legs a bit at the moment, and Varong begin to move forward. They're not riding at sufficient pace at the moment to really blast this one apart. Well, the main group then closing that gap down just 40 seconds at the bottom of the climb. The yellow peril seems to have got off the front because we saw so much of the Oncé team trying to defend the interests of Jalabert. In fact, we've got two Jalaberts riding this one, and one of them is in this break at the moment. The other one, Nicolas Jalabert, riding for the Cofidis team, who's riding also with Tony Rominger and Maurizio Fondres. In fact, I said I thought Fondres wasn't going to ride. My corrections and apologies that he is in fact riding number 62 today in the Cofidis team, and his back has been giving him trouble, so let's keep our fingers crossed for him. But making it look very easy indeed, bouncing along at the front of this group of riders. All the ride these crash-outs, by the way, that is the law in Belgium. I mean, Novi Vronk doesn't like to ride the crash-out, but they certainly have to have them. And I suppose in some respects, if we saw that crash in the Paris-Roubaix when Aucher went down from the Big Mac Abbeville Peugeot team, he would certainly, thankfully he got one on, because he did actually get a cracked skull. Auger, he got a slight fracture of the skull. He also broke his collarbone as well. You may remember one bloke lying inert as they went round this corner. He's gone on to another hospital. They operated on his collarbone. I don't think the slight crack of his skull has caused him too much trouble. It's just getting his collarbone back in one piece. About collarbones too, the one man here from the Festina team that I'm surprised is actually riding, because he also made a right mess of his collarbone, is Neil Stevens, who came down an awful bang about 10 days ago. But I think he only just sort of cracked it. He didn't break the thing in pieces. But the pressure's on by the Festina team. Look at that, the gap now. Suddenly I thought that gap was too big at all. And so certainly the way that these two riders are going off the front, as Lauker, Jonah Lauker, number 5 for Festina, Richard Varong is there. And quite a useful gap, but I think 3 men at the moment, a little bit too thin on the ground. As Axel Merckx is coming up there for Polte in the yellow colours, and so here we are. Here comes the main pack now then, as it looks like that little breakaway group have had their moment of glory, because the main pack is now going to pull them back as they go across the line at Huy. That's now 70 kilometres have been covered. Sorry, 70 kilometres to go. They've covered 130 kilometres so far. And those great grey blocks on the left-hand side of your camera, that's the commentary point for television. And we get a good view out of there of the races, and kept out the wind, thank goodness. Unlike in Paris, we have to sit in the exposed stands with the cold wind coming. It wasn't too bad on Sunday, so the old throat managed to last out. Thanks, my friend, to the Swansea Wheelers with his Dr. Beecham's hot lemon drink. And there they go. Well, this is still a nice little pack of riders here, so I think the action's got to take place from now on in. I'd be lucky, well, certainly when Richard Bronk won the Grand Prix, the Overture, the first major race of the season, he went away and did a time trial off the front for about 3 hours. But I somehow don't think that the rest are going to get away with that easy today. He's down there at the moment with Luca, and the Gan Rider 2. Nice top view of the bus there, the Mappe bus. You see these highly decorated vehicles that the teams use. They're up, Lauke, Veronk and Vasseur. Now, are they going to persist with this one? Going quickly through the feed at the moment. Certainly Veronk looks quite comfortable. And what's happening back in the main group at the moment? Well, they're just collecting their musettes. They're not going to get much action here from Pascal Hervé at the back of this little group. Surprised everybody taking the pink jersey in the Tour of Italy last year. He'll just sit back here, leaving Veronk and Oka at the front. And these are two leaders. Well, I don't think that the way they're trotting along here, going to the feeding station, that they're going to perhaps persist with this one. There's always the things I say, and suddenly they put, yes, they're coming up to, I thought there would be a bit of a junction going on, and just going across the gap there and quickly collecting those leaders. That was one of the Lotto riders, and you give some idea there on your screen there. It's a nice day for bike ride, not too warm, not too hot, no chance of any great rain coming down, and the wind only just reasonable. It's not going to cause any great trouble, I think, to the race today. So somehow they've got to have the purge now, because there's a lot of people in this race still with a chance of winning. And looking ahead of us, we've got still a few climbs yet to come at the back end of this race. After Bois de Fille, 1, 2, 3 more climbs, and the final climb up the Puy as well. So it's still one of those days, I think, when the climbers are going to be licking their lips. And one climber indeed that I'm looking forward to, and I'm sure you followers of the sport back at home will be doing as well, will be for Marco Pantani, who wears number 211 on his back for Mercato Nuno. He's been riding in a yellowish coloured jersey. We're talking quite a lot of yellow jerseys down there. The big Matt Oberg team have got yellow with bits of red on it. The Mercato Nuno have got very much yellow jerseys. And the Polti team, as you see here, very much yellow jerseys as well. As we looked at Axel Merckx, the big fella here. And so well, let's try and watch out to see what happens with Pantani, whether he's just going to wait for the weekend and Liège-Bastogne-Liège, or whether he's going to actually try and do something today in this particular race. Another good climb, Claudio Chiappucci for the ASICS team. I haven't seen much of him so far. He's been hovering around, doing some good rides recently, getting lots of second and third places, and he's reforming again at that little group at the front. They've just managed to sort of reform themselves again. But the gap, really, I don't think it's enough for them to stay away. One man we haven't seen much of so far, we're looking down there at the Telecom team colours, the pink and the white colours, but from the Team Deutsche Telekom, Bjorn Ries is riding today, number 31. And again, he doesn't really like to show it in the early season classics. He's keeping his powder dry until the Tour de France, but certainly Ries is riding in the race today. And of course, the man that everybody is watching out is in superb form at the moment, Laurent Jalabert. He took an awful pasting in the Tour of Flanders when he died 1,000 deaths, but he's been off down to the Tour of Basque Country, winning stages down there, and so he's come back up here in good form. And I think the Once team will just leave this little lot out there for a bit longer before they start to try and come back to them. Well, Bartel is in that one, and Bogart, and the chase coming on. And without the neutral service cars behind it, it's all breaking up all over the place. As fast as the little group starts at the front. Anyway, you see the commissaires dropping back now between this little one. And so I think they've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 men here. There's going to be a bit of a junction coming on. And we'll have to start all over again with a complete new list of riders. in that group. Most of them will be those that I read out to you earlier on, but somehow when they come together, that may slow the thing down with just some 67 kilometres to go to the end of the Flèche Wallonne. Then to the Tour of Flanders, and the chase is really on at the moment. A group of what, about 15, 18 men on that second climb of the Huy. Look like they're being caught, they're fragmented. You can almost sort of chuck a cat across between the gap, and suddenly it is gone up way again. So in fact, as we're looking now at these riders here, I'm just searching. There's Diaz from the Once team was coming through, just to see what the Once team are going to do about trying to pull back that leading group, which contains Axel Merckx at the moment, and also Veronk. It looked like when Veronk went away with Luca and with Vasseur, that they might be able to go on their own. They eased back, this little group of some 12 men, then caught back with them. But the main pack still haven't closed down that gap, which was some 40 seconds. So perhaps then they may stay away. I thought on that climb they looked very determined indeed, the main group, to pull them back, but it hasn't worked out that way. Lotto got a couple of men in this group. The Rabobank team have got a couple of riders in here as well. And Axel Merckx is really driving this one along. Couple from Festina. So there's a nice little composite group here. So then 18 men it is in this group, and there we are, just a recheck. See, it has changed somewhat. Hervé has come up to join them as well. He wasn't in that group originally, so there's an additional one with Pascal Hervé. He actually seemed to be going up quite easily on the climb. So the one or two have jumped across, including Ralph Yarman was there originally, by the way, who did that long lone break in the Paris-Roubaix the weekend. So on that climb, I was right. I thought the main pack had got close enough to them to change the running order, and one or two have jumped across, including Pascal Hervé, who started at the bottom of the climb, sitting there looking very comfortable indeed, and the gap now is some 30 seconds. So that's not really enough with a pack of this size, I'd have thought. They've got to work well, but some just don't want to work too hard, and the Once team have got to do something about that, and will come trailing after it. And I think also we're likely to see the Mercaton Uno team, because Pantani, if he can pull this lot back together, that final lunge, if they're all one big peloton coming into the Muir climb for the final time, then someone like Pantani can just bounce up the climb and take the victory. Veronk could do the same thing, but of course he's popped off and joined this little breakaway group at the front. We'll have to watch then to see what happens. There's number 5, Jarluka from the Festina team, and coming back down the pack, the camera's picking up the rest of the riders. That was Ralph Yarman, number 133 for the Casino squad, who rode himself into the ground on Sunday. This is Axel Merckx. Long, tall fellow, is a big gangling chap. Certainly not tall on his far no. Vasseur. Well, there's a hell lot of decent riders in this little group at the moment. Quick look there at Pascal Hervé, and really driving this one along. Lotto have decided to come good, I think, this season, because we just had a look at Verbrugge from the Lotto team, and Once conspicuous by their absence. Fortini going through. Well, so with what, just one Rabobank in there at the moment. In fact, there are two Rabobank riders in there at the moment. 2 from Rabobank, 2 from Lotto, at least 3, or is it 4 from the Festina team? We've got Hervé in there, Luca and Veronk, so there's 3 of the Festina team in there. I have to check the gap on my Festina watch. Yes, I purchased one. I like the team so much I bought a watch. That sounds like the bloke who liked the Razor so much he bought the company. Well, I like the team so much I bought one of their watches, and I did. It's a very elegant looking thing here. Too many dials on it for me to understand what the hell to do with all. I press the buttons and it goes whizzing all over the place, but there we are. They're working well. There's a nice little chain gang going at the front, and they don't seem to be carrying any passengers at the moment, so perhaps that 30-second gap might still work. It depends, of course, if we're going to get any instructions to the team manager for anybody to sort of lay back and let somebody else come up to try and join in the fray, because we just had a look there at 64, Bobby Julich of the Cofidis team. Now there's a useful lad indeed. Julich took over the leader's jersey in an event down in I was to the Basque Country. I have to look back at my record, but in Spain. And Bobby Julich, and there we are back with Rees, by the way. So the camera's jumped back. I'll have to quickly look again to see where this. I think this in fact is the chasing group. Looking up from my little notes. So we're with the chasing group now, and there Bobby Julich in this chasing group. Bobby Julich, who really came good at the back end of last year when we had the tremendous performance from him in the Tour of Spain. That really saved his bacon. He got himself signed up for the Cofidis team, which is really a mixed bag of riders. Of course, they had that great success with Gaumont in the Game Bevergum midweek, just exactly 7 days ago. It's interesting to see how the two new teams from France, Cofidis and La Française des Jeux, have already started to go well and perform and get themselves some success. Here we go, 62 kilometres to go, and that one on Sunday. By the way, I must apologise also, the winner of the Paris-Roubaix, I pronounce his name Guesdon. It's G-U-E-S-D-O-N. In fact, you dropped the S out. It's Guédon. So for all followers of the French language, my apologies then that it was Guédon, not Guesdon, who I was mispronouncing. In fact, that was better than the one of a certain terrestrial station that shall be nameless. The actual commentators from that station didn't even know the winner. They just knew it was one from La Française des Jeux and didn't even know who he was. So that was one up, I suppose, that I even got his name slightly wrong. At least it was the man Guédon, which I pronounced Guesdon, that got the victory for Marc Madio, twice victor of the Paris-Roubaix. It's quite interesting that a number of other directors sportifs who've had their riders win over the years. Fred de Buyne, who became a director sportif, was in charge of Henny Kuiper, who won in 1983. Peter Post, who won in 1964 and set the record for the Paris-Roubaix, was in charge of Jan Raas, Eric van der Aarden, Jean-Marie Vampers and Eddie Plancart when they won the race as well. And of course now Marc Madio, twice win the race, was the sport director for Frédéric Guédon on Sunday. So they're passing down their great experience. And just my apologies also to the Bromley video people who sent me a lovely copy of the Paris-Roubaix Centenary video and some nice t-shirts. It didn't arrive till I got back to the office. Something went wrong there, chaps, but thanks so much indeed. Looking at the route they've got here, coming up to that climb of the Côte d'Armée, the Mur de Rouy, and that's the way the race goes round now, as you can see, trickling backwards and forwards, and comes up to finish there. That's a little sort of loopy thing down there. I've got that to run through in towards the finish. Having started this morning in Spa and running this race over the hilly side of the Belgian Ardennes, and it's been here ever since 1985, and of course takes place before the Les Bastogne-Liège, two of the World Cup Classics, the Paris-Roubaix and Les Bastogne-Liège, taking part over the weekend as such. We started out this morning at Spa. It's called the Pearl of the Ardennes. It's got, what, 10,000 people living there. A very famous spa and holiday resort, and it's a lovely green part of the world. And right now, with spring coming, and we've had some beautiful weather so far, it is very green indeed down here. And it's right in the heart of the Ardennes forest. Place Spa, when the high society and the royals used to meet. Place for like Queen Margot, the French philosopher, Montaigne, Madame Recamier, Victor Hugo and Alexander Dumas all headed out to Spa to take the waters which were prescribed the cure for heart diseases, breathing difficulties, arthritis and anemia. They're well known, the spas, from Roman times, but really became famous in the 16th century. Spa was also the headquarters of the German army in 1918, and it became the headquarters of the first American army in 1944. So it's a very historic town where they started from, and they're going to finish in Huy, the chief town of the province of Liège on the River Meuse, with some 18,000 inhabitants, and it's midway between Liège and Namur. So that's where they'll be heading for, and the distance to be covered today, 200 kilometres in all. Back to that chasing. Just then we picked up Berzin, by the way, in this main pack behind. And then that gap for only about half a minute or so. There's so much quality talent still in this field. There we see Rees as well, looking good. That they're going to have to really work hard, that little group in front, to stay away. Berzin is there. Well, we hope we'll pick him up in a minute, riding for the Batik squad. As we're going back up to our leading pack. Berzin riding with 141 on his bike there. Claudio Chiappucci, which we just picked up there at the moment for the ASICS team. So a nice, useful little group up in front. But Evgeny Berzin was in third spot in 1994. He was third in 1995. So he's in that little group behind, and certainly trying to do what they can to pull back our leaders. Also, we had a quick look at Claudio Chiappucci, who was third in this race in 1993. So a lot of people here who know this course well, now it's settled down to being over the same roads. They can just judge their effort and decide when to go. It's all a calculated thing, because if you go too soon and bust a gasket, then you're going to take an awful pasting. It's all about judgment, this particular race. They come up then to this climb, just 1,100 metres of actual climbing, but only 63 metres in height, so it's not too difficult for them. And when we get here, it will be 53 kilometres from the finish. Well, it looks like the breakaway group are going to be pulled in. I've said that before, but certainly we just watched the commentator's car there, the red one, drop back. As the pressure's been coming on from some of the top men to close down that gap on the run-in now towards that climb of the Côte de Bay. Then the Côte de Boisseau with 26 kilometres to go, the Côte d'Argent 10 kilometres to go, and the final one up the Mur de Huy. Something tells me what they're trying to do at the moment, this whole lot, is just look at the Mercaton Uno team on the front. I said that what they're trying to do is pull this thing together, have a nice little chunk of riders together, and then Marco Pantani can go pow up the climb and take his success. And I'd love that. I shouldn't be biased as a commentator, but I've admired the way, well, it's 43 seconds still here. It's been yo-yoing quite a bit, but if they pull that back together again, as well they should, then if Pantani gets this one, that'll be a tremendous recovery from him for that accident he had in October, just over 12 months, 18 months ago now. And Pantani, what an odd character, what an oddball. He really could, I suppose, have retired from racing. He could have gone and played his guitar. Actually, I saw pictures of him the other day when he was dressed in a painting outfit, and he was there at his easel. He does a lot of painting as well, and he's involved in getting an exhibition going in a local cafe of artists and what have you. He's a bit of a singer too, bit of a character, and I think he could probably have made a name for himself in entertainment, but he worked hard. He had to go swimming in the swimming baths with special things on his legs so he could actually keep his muscles going until his broken bones healed, which allowed him then to start riding an exercise bike, and then bit by bit taking the exercise further and further forward. And in fact, one day he went and rode an event which was like a randonneur racing touristy type thing, and because of a professional cyclist, he wasn't supposed to ride the thing. He actually dressed up as a woman to ride the race and took part in it just to test out the strength of his leg. And what a character. Shaved his head, of course, and rides on his bike. You'll see it with the pirate, he calls himself now. They've called him all sorts of things like Elefantino because of his ears. The singing Kojak because he shaved his head, but he likes to be known as the pirate. So let's see if he's going to plunder this one. But he's got to pull back that gap of 43 seconds, or his team have, before he has a chance then of doing anything about winning the Flèche Wallonne. No great British interest in this little group here. Well, going back to British interest, the Paris-Roubaix over the weekend, it was finally a 32nd place for Max Chandry from Derby, riding for the Française des Jeux. And so he was very happy, of course, that his teammate Guédon got the victory for La Française des Jeux. but he dropped back to 32nd place in the end, and that was at, what, 5 minutes and 28 seconds down. So you may remember Max was in that leading group within, what, the last 20 kilometres to go. It just shows you could take an awful pasting right towards the back end of the race, and so it was that he finished back in 32nd spot. If you didn't read the actual result in your local newspapers, and I didn't have time to say for sure who was second, third and fourth, I could only pick out Guédon the victor. Just let me tell you now that it was Guédon that won for La Française des Jeux. In second spot it was Joe Plancart for the Lotto team. Third went to Museo of the Mapei GB team, the world champion, having had that puncture, disastrous puncture, right in towards the back end of the race. Arnaud Chimil was fourth, so a great sprint for second, third and fourth place being Plancart, Museo and Chimil. Fifth was Casarotto. Sixth was Sorensen, and that gave him some useful points in the World Cup. In fact, now Sorensen has got 156 points in the World Cup and leads ahead of Zabel and Guédon, who both have 100 points. And in fourth spot in the World Cup, Plancart and Moncassin both had 94 points. So good ride then by Sorensen, finishing sixth. Seventh was Walters of the Lotto team. Eighth, Moncassin, and they were all together at the same time in that big sprint finish. Aldag brought in the chasing pack at 14 seconds, chasing at 14 seconds. Vogels at 25 seconds, then Zanini, Capella, Capio, Cursipiu, etc., etc., right the way down to the 75 riders who actually were classified, but outside the time limit, but riding into the finish was Robin McEwen of the Rabobank team and Lupakis of the US Postal team. They were outside the classification, coming in after the time limit, but that was the way it was, with Britain's Max Chandler finishing in 32nd spot. David Miller, in the end, we said he was a bit sick, decided not to start. He's still struggling, and so that was him out of the race. Right, here we are back again. That's Francesco Casagrande from the Psycho team. Just following on behind André Perron from La Française des Jeux. So this is the leading group at the moment, still hanging on with that very thin lead indeed over a very nice workmanlike group who have got, I think, probably to get a bit closer. I think right now it must come down. It is, in fact, I think, coming down the mountain. Try and listen on our headphones here. Well, there's Chiappucci just coming off the front then. Laudsen coming through. Luca just having done his turn on the front. And Bartoli next to go through. Very workmanlike group here. And we're back to the main pack, and something tells me they're not like to see that group unless they do something about it. Well, that's Frattini at the back of this little pack at the moment. Well, there I see it, 38.54 kilometres per hour. It shows that it hasn't been a very fast race so far. The average speed, by the way, going back to Paris-Roubaix, was 40.28 kilometres per hour. That's 25 kilometres per hour, very, very rough conditions. So perhaps this might speed up a bit towards the end. The field now inside the final 50 kilometres to go of this race, and just one big climb yet to go. The gap's still around about 30 seconds for this breakaway group, around about 18 riders in all. Looking down up there on your screen, and they're still hovering out there, just wondering, in fact, if they've got enough fire in their legs to stay away. Axel Merckx is pulling off the front at the moment. Useful group, we feel like Chiappucci and Frattini, Luaca, Hervé, Vironk in this particular pack, but somehow right behind here there's enough power surely to do something about it. Outside back up with the leading group. We keep going backwards and forwards from front to back of the group, and it's a fair big sized group. And I suppose the difficulty is now for the team tactics, the team manager behind to decide exactly what to do, because there's just every team seems to be representing, except the Onse team don't seem to have any power in this one at the moment. We've seen Rees hanging on in the main group back then. He's not too well to chase this one down. That Udo Bolt's just coming off the front then for the Telecom team. A useful climber indeed. So perhaps the main pack have decided to let this little lot sort themselves out. Oh, my headphones ringing out with the gap at the moment. It's in Flemish. It's not my favourite language. So I think it's 40-something seconds, but we'll have to wait and see. I mean, this is somebody telling me Flemish wasn't a language, it was an inflection of the throat. But I'll wait for the caption to come up. I can follow some of them, but that one seemed like 40-something seconds. Well, certainly I can hear on the headphones about 7 men away, and I can spot them as well. But my God, this peloton's coming up. So perhaps it wasn't 40-something seconds, perhaps it's only 14. And it's La France des Jeux that really are hammering along here. And they must be interested then in doing a ride for both Rominger and Fondres. They've taken on now the chase on their Gitane bicycles. We're nice to see him back in the group. And what a low position he's sitting down here. He's right almost like he's in an armchair. I've never seen such a low position there. That's Xavier Jan from the French rider from the team. Look at another little diddy fellow with his small head tube just going through us. For the there's Fondres going through as well. So suddenly the La France des Jeux and the Mercatonuna have decided to have a go at it. That's good. I wonder who the hell is going to chase this one down, because there's so many teams represented here. Black and red for Lotto, the Festina teams in the blue and white, and the GAN there in the whitish colours. Axel Merckx is in the yellowish one. You can see there the distance they've been out there. Maximally was 43 seconds, down now to 28 seconds or so. Axel Merckx comes through behind Claudio Chiappucci, 181 in those ASICS colours. They are a sports clothing company. I think they started out making running shoes or something many years ago, but they're fully sponsoring a team which used to be the Carrera squad. And in fact, they're still riding on Carrera bikes. And so Chiappucci's made his move through in this little breakaway group. And they're still bouncing along here. So the rider from the 2002 Flandern team having just done a little bit on the front at the moment. And Jarman, not unsurprisingly, is dropping back a bit. Chap who's won stage in the Tour of Switzerland, Tour de France, Tour of Italy and so on, and enlightened us on the Paris-Roubaix for the early part there. It's just sitting in the wheels now at the moment. And Claudio Chiappucci doesn't look too happy, just drifting off your screen on that climb. Because you never know whether he's just spoofing the rest of them, but that group containing Veronk then just 27 seconds, and you can see the examination going on now as to whether it's worth continuing with. There's Pascal Hervé, who jumped across that gap on the second climb of the Huy, and they're just wondering if they really should persist with this. And that's your gap, so it has to come down. There's going to be something happening here. Oh, but a quick bit of news for you over the weekend. Chris Newton, the British rider riding for the Velo Club Annemasse, took the Grand Prix of Geneva, and so that's good news for the bold Chris, who's riding very well in France at the moment. He also took a third spot in the Onyx Bourg race as well, behind Philippe Marouet of the Vendée U team. And in sixth place, the chap called Perry from the CC UTEP. Now, there's two Perrys riding over in Europe at the moment. One of them is always listed as a Swiss rider, although I think in fact he has British parents or something. And the other one is a British rider. So which of it was, but Perry was in there as well. Here we are, back with the main pack. And let's see what La France des Jeux are going to do there with the French champion in the blue, white and red colours. So I think somehow they've decided they're going to do a bit of working to catch this group back. The leaders flying along at a great rate of knots. We haven't seen anything so far of the Once team, because I would have thought, I mean, before we came on air, they'd done a lot of driving on the front. and they've given up now and have gone back into the main group. They haven't got anyone in the breakaway, so it really is down, if you look at this little group, to La France de Jeu, to the Mercato Nuno, and to the Once team, I think, to drive this one. There are other teams who haven't got a managed breakaway group, like Benesto. But Benesto, by the way, there is an Indurain racing today. Hands up those who know who it is. Yes, his brother, Prudencio. So Big Mig's brother, Prudencio Indurain, is riding today. But the Benesto team are just, they play lip service, people like Benesto, to come and race up in Belgium. They have to come up here because they've got to go on to ride the Liège-Bastogne-Liège on Sunday. The teams in the top 20 in the UCI classification are expected to compete in the World Cup Series. There's a gap now, 36 seconds, was 27, still hovering out there. So Benesto have come forward to ride today, and we haven't seen much of them. They won't do any chasing to bring this one down, I don't think. The rest of the teams, well, Festina watches, we've got riders in here. We've got one from MG Technogym. Roslotto haven't got anybody in here, and in fact they've got Ugramov riding for them today. So Roslotto, Ugramov, maybe again keeping his powder dry until the weekend. But I should have thought Roslotto might do a bit of chasing, because Konishev and Fatigato are also riding today, and we haven't seen them do anything so far to chase back this little group. Rabobank, they won't chase down because they've got a man in here. As we look now, they're at the driving that's going on from the group. He's a little fellow, isn't he, on his bike, a 214. I'll just check out who the hell that is. Yeah, Pelliccioli. Now, he's a useful climber as well. And they're leading for the La France de Jeu is Stefan Hulot of the squad which had that success over the weekend. And in their team, they've also got Mauro Gianetti, which really would tend to say to me that they're going to be in with a shout then to try and do something about a big ride and a big success today. So we have to wait and see what La France de Jeu can do. And also from Cofidis, because Tony Rominger, Maurizio Fonderest are in there, Bobby Julik. They've got a lot of good talent still, the Cofidis team, who aren't chasing either. La France de Jeu chasing, I think, on behalf of Gianetti, but really from Cofidis, Tony Rominger, Fonderest, Bobby Julik have probably got to start chasing down as well. There's one or two good teams haven't shown yet in the chase, as one would have expected it to happen. Mercato Nuno, they've been doing it a bit here as we look back at slow motion. Bartolo, I think it is, begins to charge off, taking an advantage, getting him up on the inside of Merckx. They certainly have got to split this field up. It's a bit too big, this breakaway group at the front at the moment. And looking down the rest of the teams who can do any chasing, there's not much out there at the moment. So it must be down to Cofidis to do something in the red and white colours. Whether Rominger, Fonderest, Julik, Nicolas Jalabert can do anything about this little group at the front, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I say Benesto won't do much. Casino won't do it because they've got German in there. That's him in the red shorts. Casino, c'est votre équipe. No, I think we're going to see any work from the Batik team to chase this one down. And just those 11 climbs yet to go, and the final one up the Muidochi, that's the big one. So that's our main group, still hovering off the front of the pack, and the chasing must come very quickly if they're going to do anything to set the scene at the end of this race. Still that group containing Veronk, riding with number 8 on his back, who've been living dangerously virtually over the last, couple of hours or so, I suppose. And still the bunch behind them, just holding them out there, the gap going between 20 and 40 seconds. At one time when they climbed the Muidochi, they were now back to 28, was 36. And Veronk's group, they're picking Veronk as being the Veronk group, because Claudio Chiappucci is the father figure of this little breakaway that we've got at the moment. But nevertheless, because Veronk, I think, is the man in form. Well, Chiappucci's had some quite useful rides in these last few days, getting the odd second places here and there. Claudio Chiappucci, perhaps the father figure of the group. They think he hasn't got the power to romp up the Muidochi at the end of it all, whereas Veronk has. Anyway, whoever it is they're choosing to be the leader, Veronk it is in the Festina colours, and they've got 3 men in this break at the moment. There they are, group containing Chiappucci, Merckx, Frattini, and from the Festina team, Luca, Hervé, and Veronk. Puccini from the Refin team is in there, Udo Boltz from the Telecom team. Yeoman from the casino squad. And there's your main pack. This is Pascal Hervé then for the La France des Jeux. Burying himself on the front. So on the front then, number 71, Stéphane Hulot, did I say Hervé? Stéphane Hulot, as the La France des Jeux begin to work this one over. They must be working in for Marijanetti, number 73. Mercatonuna going through, and there Cofidis likewise working hard. And Tony Rominger actually has gone through. Now that's something, as Rebellin moves through here for the La France des Jeux. Well, look at this, Rominger starting to go, so whoa, boy, oh boy, this man who said that he's going to have a crack at the hour record, and he looks like he's selecting Manchester as the stadium to do it in sometime in November, all going well. What a crowd he'll have in there if he goes there. I know Chris Boardman's supporters will go there and watch what's happening and don't want Chris to lose the record, but I'm sure as true Brits, they'll cheer him on, and I had the good fortune to see Rominger get his hour record down at Bordeaux. We did it live on site, and to see Tony when he got that record was just unbelievable, and of course to see the way that Chris took it back off him, unbelievable too. So we're going to see some real action in November at the back end of the year, as yet again the French champion stirs up the pot at the front. Stéphane Hulot, the man who had the yellow jersey in the Tour de France until his knee went out, and what a pitiful sight that was as he struggled and was in great pain. Looking good at the moment on the front there, Mr. Tony Rominger. I'm not quite sure really that I suppose what they're setting up for. Mauricio Fondres has been having this back trouble. He's having gone through this problem. Not exactly sure what his form's like. He won this race in 1993, Fondres. He took off, I remember in that race, he just sort of buried himself, went away and left everybody and won it on a lovely lone ride as such. But whether he's got the power to do it again now with all the back trouble he had, I just don't know. Perhaps, of course, they're going to pull it back and surprise a few people with Bobby Julich getting the success. Here, down to 26 seconds. In fact, about surprise, evidently all the press which I read on Monday after the Paris-Roubaix, when Gaydon got it, the rest of the blokes in that breakaway group just didn't know who they got with them. I mean, he was second as an amateur in the race, and he'd been riding with, he joined La Groupement, which just folded so quickly that he hardly had a chance to ride for them, and he then went to row with the Poulter team. He hadn't done very much at all, and not only was the blokes he was with not knowing what he would get up to, but also as after we came off air, there was this fellow standing in the centre of the big stadium at Roubaix with his flowers and people cheering the winner, and some of the later people were coming round. You could see him looking up and saying, "Who's that on the rostrum?" They didn't know who this fellow was, Gaydon, but you could see the question on their faces. They rode round to see who the hell had won it. Of course they could recognise some of the people like Museo and Chabil, etc., but standing up there with this fellow Gaydon, and I think that's good for sport, good for bike racing. Nicolas Jalabert just gone through with Cofidis. Cofidis beginning to work this one up now. Nice little coming together. Now this is fascinating, by the way, because the Cofidis team is managed by Cyril Guimard. La France des Jeux is managed by Marc Madiot, and those two for many years fell out. They never spoke. They would walk past each other and would just ignore each other. They've been virtual enemies, and I forget the reason why, but it dates back in history between Madiot and Guimard. They're now director sportifs of these new squads, and now they're working together here. And in fact, L'Équipe magazine had a wonderful opportunity. They got together, Guimard and Marc Madiot, into a restaurant, sat them there and let them have a meal and talk, and they interviewed them, and it was tremendous to bring these two back together. And now you see why that is, because they're having to work together. They can't always be enemies, and on this particular race, La France des Jeux and Cofidis have got to do something to try and pull back this group of about 18 men who are still living dangerously off the front of this race. Well, Axel Merckx seems to have dropped off the back of that group for some reason. And with Chiappucci, well, perhaps they just stopped for a wee or something. We didn't see it on screen. and I wait to see if anything coming up on my headphones as such, but they'll get back. Oh, Claudio Chiappucci looks comfortable back now. So, he's missing out on the turn. He's not holding the wheel too well. Well, it's still hovering just outside the 20 seconds between this leading group and the main pack. This Bronk's just gone hammering past this lot. I think he's decided that he's got to go on a bit of a break. Of course, if he can split this lot up and disappear down the road and do a bit of a time trialing and get away from them, then perhaps when they get absorbed, if they get absorbed by the chasing group, they're out of sight, out of mind. But no, they pull him back, so he's not going to survive that one. Of course, it might be that Merckx and Chiappucci, I say they might have stopped for a wheel, so I wouldn't have thought so this particular point of the race, but Claudio's a very seasoned campaigner and probably begin to think that he'll just ride at the back and just do little or nothing at the front, because this chase really is now the Hammers, as I said over the weekend, and so did Sean Kelly. The Hammers gone down. Sorry about that. Hey, by the way, look at this yellow bike here with a red fork on one side and the blue on the other. The Mercato Nuno really have got some rather strange ideas how to paint a bike. You watch them, and look, red one side, blue the other. And Cofidis, Mercato Nuno and Aflance de Jeu are driving this one. No sign recently now. It's 18 seconds. Oh, it's coming through now. I can understand that in Flemish, but there's 18 seconds is a gap. So there's Rees just going through, and that string, what's left of the starters this morning, really hammering along, and I think it could be a chance for the junction to come. I've said that ever since we came on air, an hour ago, I suppose, on the live coverage on Eurosport. They're going to catch those leaders, and so far they've not done so. But 18 seconds, and the way it's all strung out here, something tells me that perhaps it's all over and done with. Let's have a look down the road off a helicopter. And there it is then. Just 18 seconds between the leaders, about 18 men down the road, and it might all be over and done with shortly. On these long straight stretches, the chasing group can see that, in fact, it's less than 18 seconds now. The last time check we had was 18 seconds. It must be far less than that on this, the Flèche Wallonne, the part of the weekend in the Ardennes, because after this on Wednesday, we move forward on Sunday for the Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and you can see it on Eurosport on Sunday afternoon when we will have only about an hour's programme, unfortunately, on Sunday. Check your schedules in your local newspapers, because sometimes these things change a little bit, and I'm sorry sometimes when you set your video recorders and things don't come on, because Eurosport is a live transmitting company, and sometimes we have to change our schedules at 11th hour, so rather than just looking in your weekly or monthly magazines to see what's on the box, then it's always worthwhile checking in your daily newspaper, because things do change at the 11th hour. And one thing is, the back end of the Paris-Roubaix, sorry to keep referring to my thanks to Sean Yates. I didn't have time to say to Sean Yates, thanks for the work he put in over the weekend. We really enjoyed that. Again, we weren't on air quite as long as we thought we were going to be, but Sean's contribution was absolutely invaluable. And I also forgot to get him to sign a card that was sent to me by Mark and Vernon with a picture of their bear bouncing up and down on the cobbles on the Wallers-Arlenberg stretch of the Paris-Roubaix. But I hope to do that and send it back to them, because they're the people who call the bear is in yellow because it came from the Tour de France when Yates went in yellow. And I hope to get that signed and sent back to those good people up there in the north of England. Well, the race is on, and my goodness, the group, I think, are going to do damage now, and it's all going to come back together again. And one final talk then about the Paris-Roubaix. Thank you to David Bromley Video Entertainment for that nice T-shirt. I'm sorry it turned up rather late, but I will wear it with pride and watch this Paris-Roubaix centenary tape which you sent to me. Price $29.99, including post and packing. Isn't that jolly nice? Well, something tells me that there's no history at the moment as far as this race is concerned, unless, of course, we get an unusual victor, because I think they're going to come back together. History being made last year when Lance Armstrong was the first man to win the Flèche Wallonne since 1936 for America. And it's good to see Lance over the weekend, looking quite fit and well, but of course still suffering with his problems with the cancer. 31 kilometres to go. Well, that's exactly 20 miles, or sniff under 20 miles. You divide by 8, multiply by 4 if you know how to turn it round into miles. So it's 32 kilometres. Divide by 4 makes 4. Divide by 8 makes 4. 4 by 5 makes 20 miles left to go. So who's going to win, I ask myself. I haven't a clue at the moment. If this lot comes back together again, I would like to put my money on Pantani. His team's been doing a bit of work in there with the France des Jeux. They will be looking, I suppose, to Giannetti, who is not the world's greatest climber. And Cofidis, again, probably pulling it back for Bobby Julich of all things, because Rominger and Fondres can climb, but maybe not the sort of way that Julich is. A very good mountain climber. So imagine if we get an American winning 2 years on the trot. Just pause it. I don't know where he's gone to, that bike rider. It looks like he's gone straight through the front door for a cup of tea or something. I think he was a bit concerned about the motorbike in front of him. Now, slow motion, he went round that right-hander, and let's hope he's all right, because the bike got in the way, and he seemed then to have to straighten his bike up. He thought possibly that the motorbike was going to crash, straightened his bike up and went straight on, and it looked as if the door had been open, he'd gone straight through the living room, out the kitchen, into the garden at the back, but I think somehow he clouted the wall. Let's hope he's all right. So inside, 20 kilometres to go, and that looks like Merckx having a go at here at the front. Yep, 5 men beginning to try and get away at the front. That's dangerous, that's difficult. Here we go again, another view. Oh, it's all right, he's okay. He hasn't gone in for a cup of tea. One of the Lotto riders, he's back on the pavement, he's back on his bike. Good, thank goodness for that. He must have had to be able to slam his brakes on before he collided with the house. We don't often see the Sedico team begin to perform, but of course they're not far down the road from their home base, so they also begin to have a little go at the moment. And that was Terry Marshall of the Sedico Ville-de-Charleroi. Well, it's still anybody's race inside these final 20 kilometres now, with that Phil then absolutely strung out. There were a lot of tired legs in there, and there you are seeing 29 kilometres in fact to go. That's just inside 18 miles as such toward the finish, and they've got that final climb up the Côte d'Huy, but the Côte de Borisseau lies ahead of them, just 180 metres, but it's going to be a short, sharp thing that's going to really test the legs of the riders. And still that leading group who've been living dangerously, providing all the firepower throughout the race so far. And once they're over the top of this climb, then just ahead of them the Côte d'Argent with 10.5 kilometres to go. And Meyer there just at the back of the field, and one of the Kelme riders from the team, sponsored also by Costa Blanca and Eurosport, of course. Bartoli here starting to go hard on the front, trying to go for it. In fact, no, it's Coppolillo, my mistake. Coppolillo from the MG Technogym team. looks like Once are beginning to come to the front. Ots jumping around here. No, it's Poulty though who's having a go. Well, Covadis and La France de Jeu have been doing so much work to try and pull back that breakaway group, and now amazingly the Poulty have had to go, but Jalabert here, what's Jalabert up to? This is Jalabert looking back over his shoulder, he's driving away up here, and Jalabert's closed that gap down now on that Poulty rider. Surprised the Poulty rider went, because with Axel Merckx in contention for success today, Jalabert looking very strong. Has he got to do it on his own though, Jalabert? The Once team tried early on to pull away an early break, but didn't manage to do it, and suddenly the climbing space, but oh look, Jalabert's sagging off. Jalabert's dropped back. 1, 2, 3, 4 men have gone past him now. Jalabert couldn't quite hold the wheel. Is he struggling somewhat? And or is he in fact just letting other people take over the lead at the front? Well, I don't know, back again. Well, this is an amazing performance then by the Once team. They've waited and waited and waited. Well, Sainz is a very, very skillful team manager, the manager of the Once team. He will be telling his riders what to do and when to do it. But they're leaving this awfully late at the moment. Talk about living dangerously, the way this race has been so close. A bit, I suppose, like last Sunday. Nothing really good, but now Jalabert starting to put the pressure down. I thought for a moment when he dropped back that he'd blown a gasket, but somehow Jalabert has found some more speed to go, and he's making it look so calm. That must have been just a little fainting act on his part to show people that perhaps he was off form, but he's gone now. Jalabert staying very, very late, waiting. Well, we're getting in towards the back end of this race now, probably about 20 kilometres to go, I suppose. So look at this climb they're on now. Over the top of this one. Yeah, well, about 25 kilometres to go. And he's really powering away here. Jalabert had kept himself back in the main group, and suddenly the whole of this race is beginning to blow apart at the seams as riders decide to take things into their own hands and depart down the road. And Jalabert is then I look back, a quick look back to see what a damage he'd done, but he certainly has done a lot of damage. The gaps have opened up right behind. A little group at the front, but I think somehow they could well get caught back there. Jalabert, LeBlanc and Zainab. So after that junction, on that climb then, those three at the front. Jalabert making it look so easy at the moment. And that trip down to ride in the Tour de Basque Country seems to have done him some good. When Zula ran out to be victor, Jalabert was second at 32 seconds. Pantani was third at 44 seconds. And oh, the arch enemies are starting to jump around now, because this is Luc Leblanc coming up. And we've not seen much of him so far. Luc Leblanc from the Poulty team. When I said that a Poulty rider went, I couldn't understand why. Then obviously with Axel Merckx beginning to struggle a bit, it looks like Luc Leblanc now has taken up the chase. He, with a rather unusual position, he sort of rocks and rocks and rocks on his bike, having had that sort of back trouble that has caused him the need to go off to have some hospitalisation and treatment. But Luc Leblanc has suddenly come back into good form. He had that terrible year, like many riders did, that were in the Group 1 squad when they couldn't race and the sponsor ran out of money. But Luc Leblanc's making quite a good job of this season and looking good at the moment. Up there with Zaina. Yeah, well, the telephoto lens from this shot, I'm not sure if our helicopter's gone down onto the ground or not, but it's an unusual position. We don't normally have a camera that far out to pick these things up, or whether it's when the motorcycle camera has gone forward, but it's giving us a lovely shot. But it's a bit for short with the telephoto lens, and I think some of those three riders are going to find themselves sucked back into the main pack any moment now. And Rees is beginning to come through. Look at that, in the red and white right in the centre there. Now Rees has been normally just rides and contains himself for the Tour, but so far he's got a lead out by one of his telecom riders as well, up there in front. I don't think these three are likely to survive. There's Zayn on the front at the moment, then Jalabert going through, Polti following, the rider following on is Leblanc. So after our leading group of some 18 riders got themselves absorbed on that climb, which was shot from a helicopter, and it didn't quite see it all happen, but they were, it was on the climb of the Côte de Barrisso with 26 kilometres to go. They all came back together again, and now we're running in towards the finish. There's a climb up the Côte d'Argent, and then the final climb of the day up to the Mouille de Huy. And I'm certain, again, I'm sure it's all down to keeping the thing together and then launching the big attack on that final climb. We shall see. We've seen lone breaks get before, but I don't think the last 2 or 3 years has been such a large wodge of riders at this stage. It's still in contention. Only 8 seconds. Well, I'm sure they'll leave Jalabert, Leblanc and Zaina out there to fry right now. Just keep them in sight and don't let them go too far down the road. And this is going to play straight into hands for some extremely good mountain climbers like Pantani, who could launch themselves in at the finish of this race and have a go at getting the victory. There's about 30 riders in that group at the moment, so what was the main pack has now been whittled down to about 30 odd, with 3 here. So we've got no more than about 35 riders in contention for the winner of this Flèche Wallonne this year. He's saying, yeah, come on, keep going. So looks like they're prepared to have a go. And there we are, 25 kilometres to go. So it's just getting towards 15 miles left in this race with 2 climbs. First, the one with 10 k's to go. And there Bernardino, by the way, signing autographs. One of the members of the Société Tour de France, one of the directors that helps organise these races. Looking still very fit, though he doesn't ride his bike, by the way, now. Just clean living. We've got about 20 kilometres yet to go in this race. Still these 3 men in the lead, Jalabert, Zaina and Leblanc. Their lead hovering around about 10 seconds, I was going to say, and there it is. And they say the group Veronk at the back. Well, that group Veronk, by the way, is a lot more than Veronk, because also in that group chasing, we've got Giannetti, Zuller, Berzin, Pantani, Jean-Claude Robin, Rees as well. And when we go back there, you'll see it's quite a workmanlike group of riders. So provided they keep within 10 seconds, then they could still perhaps close up getting in towards the end of this race. Actually, Jean-Claude Robin riding for the US Postal team. And this is the last time I'll talk about the Paris-Roubaix, by the way, but you may have caught up with the fact, well, I certainly got news for the start. I didn't get it confirmed, but certainly I was told that the riders couldn't ride on that that Y-shaped frame that Trek had developed, which they use in mountain bike racing, with the front and rear suspension. It's got a rather integrated rear suspension system where the bottom bracket is connected with the chainstays to the drive without being interfered with by the suspension system. They do it by making a very unusual Y-shaped frame, and they decided, because this Y-shaped frame didn't have a top tube, that they won't be allowed to start, the UCI officials. And I thought, well, they can ride mountain bikes on the race under UCI rules. Why couldn't they ride in the Paris-Roubaix? But I haven't been able to pose a question to anybody on authority, but perhaps they might say, well, it's a different sort of race, the mountain biking, but the Paris-Roubaix has got 50 kilometres of cobbles, which I'd have thought, although it doesn't go up and down, it's a damn near mountain bike race, as makes no difference. In fact, the mountain bike riders have been down it just before the race came through. And also, I thought, well, what if Jenny Longo, this great woman, Olympic champion, world champion, turned up on a ladies' bike which doesn't have a top tube? Would they say to Jenny Longo, you can't race because you must race on a man's bike like that? I think somehow I should probably get my subscription to the UCI was sent back to me with a rude letter or something, but I think they've got to get their act together, these people. I couldn't see anything wrong with those bikes at all, but they say you must have a diamond frame and a top tube. So instead of being Graham Aubrey, he nipped down the road and got himself a broomstick and tied it to the top of the bike, I suppose, and said, hey, I've got a top tube, you can't say anything about it. But no doubt this thing will, they say, run and run and run. Back to Flèche Wallonne. I won't mention the Paris-Roubaix again for the rest of the programme. Right. That's who's doing the chasing. It seems very much that the Festina team, who've got quite a wodge of riders in there, Lucas in that little group, together with Baronk. Yeah, they're down the road, Sunshine. That's it. Adjust them. You'll see him shortly enough. LeBlanc with his unusual sort of sideways position on his bike. LeBlanc at the back here. Just in front is Jalabert in the yellow. And on the front at the moment, Zainab of the Asics team. Well, this is certainly playing into their hands at the moment when the course twisting and turning and going down these narrow lanes as such. 12 seconds to Veronk's group, 40 seconds back to what's left of the main pack. I don't think somehow that Veronk's group is going to allow that other group to come back to them. There's a hell of a chase going on. And they ride that big screen that I've been talking to you about, and the crowd here can look up there. They're seeing themselves on the screen. Oh, look, they're waving to yes, yes. They'll wave to each other. I'm here, Mum, I'm on telly. And now they're seeing what you're seeing, you see. That was just a chance to let them know that they can see themselves on the telly. Look, see with the back of their heads, though. It wasn't very easy to say, yes, that's my husband there, or my son, or my daughter. You can see the back of their heads. And what they're seeing now is back there where that big screen was at the top of the climb at Twee, where the crowd is gathering now to wait for these riders to come through. They're seeing exactly what you're seeing on here now. And of course the old Frites mayonnaise are going full bore. The beer is being consumed in large quantities because Belgium is a place for vast quantities of beer. And in fact, it's the national drink as such. In fact, the average Belgian drinks 118 litres of beer. That's about 200 pints a year. There's nearly 100 breweries in the country, and they've got pale beer, dark beer, bitter, sweet, light, strong. There's Belgian beer for every taste as such. And it was known way back in antiquity, and later on the Gauls started to make it, and they gave it the name Sèvres. And during the Middle Ages, brewing beer was a privilege of the monasteries, actually, but it spread through Flanders. Indeed, the word for beer might be derived from the Flemish word of bière, but we don't know. But this is their staple diet. Well, not diet, but drinking beer is a national pastime, I suppose. 19 kilometres to go, and of course they wash down the frites and the mayonnaise, which again are a staple diet and very delightful too. There again, I was saying in the Tour of Flanders, one shouldn't say that all the food is Frites mayonnaise in Belgium, because they have 300 different cheeses and more Michelin star restaurants per capita than France, believe it or not. And so you can certainly have some decent food in Belgium. And who's going to celebrate tonight, be it champagne or beer? Are these three going to stay away? 2 climbs yet to go. Well, they've chosen the time to have a crack to stay away. And that's Jalabert. Yeah, now the officials are asking some of these motorcycles to keep out the way, because from time to time you can get a bit of shelter from it. In fact, this particular part of the road is bringing back memories to them. Certainly this is the one from Gietgerang, where they had the time trial on the Tour de France, when Bjorn Ries at one point, with about 3 kilometres to go, was actually up on Miguel Indurain in the Tour, and then finished in second spot, about 5 seconds down. I'm pretty sure we went from left to right on your screen at the moment. And there you see the officials in the background, the commissaire telling these motorcycles to get out of the way, keeping the photographers going. There's a very great pecking order, by the way, with the photographers. And those who in Cycling Weekly watch pictures from people like Graham Watson will... I'll try and see if I can find Graham in this little lot at the moment, but they actually take it in turns to come through and take the pictures, and the more senior of the photographers are allowed the first opportunity of getting the pictures. And so if you suddenly say, right, I'm doing photography and I want to get on a motorbike, you can't suddenly get permission to go in there. They only allow so many motorbike photographers per event, and the pecking order in those photographers, so that those have been around for many years, as Graham Watson has been, you're allowed to be out there and to take the first set of pictures you want and dictate how you want to go and get your pictures, providing, of course, you don't interfere with the race. Well, it looks now that the main peloton at 1 minute 22 seconds, it's over and done with. I think Axel Merckx is back in that group at some 1 minute 22 seconds. So really, anyone's going to win this race, either up the road in that 3-man group or here in this chasing group. And about 20 men in there, I think. And somehow I think they're like to catch these three. Because in that little group behind, we've got Zuller, who won't chase his teammate down here, Jalabert, Ries. Well, I don't think he's going to try and really rip his legs to pieces today. He's still working himself into form for the Tour de France. But Gianetti might be prepared to go. Berzin, Pantani, Veronk, and I suspect that probably most of the chasing could well come from the Festina team, who've got at least 3 men in that chasing group. That's Le Mans. Well, we're looking back then, and this is Coppolillo from AMG Techno Gym team. Not the most classy of riders. They're pulling along Dufo, Laurent Dufo. Look, I thought they might be happening. We've got Dufo here, Gilles Boulard from Festina. Festina really starting to go. Bartoli then just behind them. So MG and Festina start to work hard, and you won't see anything here from Zuller. Zuller won't try at all on his titanium bike to do any pulling back Jalabert. Also sitting in there, keeping an eye on things, is Diaz Justo for Once. Once got a good representation here, but they're not going to do anything to try and pull that thing back, as we now getting in towards the town of Huy, and they're running along the side of the Maas River here. That's the Maas, that's the lovely bridge over the Maas River, and that gives you the rolling background of the Ardennes there on your screen at the moment, and there is the bike race going on. Ries looking good. He seems to be taking it so comfortably at the moment, and he's quite capable then of just containing his ambitions for the Tour now, and he's beginning to lose a bit of weight. See, his cheeks are getting a bit hollow. Last time I saw him, he really a bit like my good friend Stephen Roche. He was getting a bit chubby cheek, but he's beginning to thin down just a bit now. So about 28 seconds, it looks to me as if they might be able to stay away. They've really got to go some to catch them back, but you never know in this sort of race. Somebody surely has got to start to go now and pull this lot back. So they're on this climb, the final, well, last but one climb of the day on this, the Flèche Wallonne. 3 men still away. This climb they're on, going in towards the end of the Flèche Wallonne. This is the Côte d'Argin, 10.5 kilometres from the finish at the end of it all. They've got about, they've come through Ben Argin, so they've got about, I suppose about 3 kilometres just gently rolling up. It's not a nasty little climb at all, but once they're over the top of that, just 10 kilometres in towards the finish, and the gap I think with about 28 seconds, if I can understand the Flemish in my headphones at the moment. And that may be enough. I thought they were going to get caught, but they've got to really start to thunder through from the group behind if they expected to catch these three. That's Jalabert, Zaina and Leblanc. Leblanc on the front at the moment, Zaina just behind him, and then Jalabert. Is he going to move? Is he going to try and go away from these two? Jalabert is beginning to put the pressure on. Jalabert is pushed the pressure up a bit now. Zaina looks like he's shot. It looks like they've got rid of Zaina at the moment. And suddenly the two Frenchmen then are rolling away off the front. Quick look back at the last Frenchman to win this race was Jalabert there. And it's Zaina that's found himself in trouble. The two Frenchmen have started to put the pressure on. Jalabert won in 1995. Before that, the other Frenchman to win was Leclerc-Webec in 1987. So Jalabert looking for his second victory in the Flèche Wallonne. Leblanc is with him at the moment. Leblanc not having featured. In the top three in the Flèche Wallonne. He's on the attack now. Leblanc on the front, then Jalabert. This long, gradual climb, just sapping the strength. Zaina then drifting off the back, just couldn't hold them. Well, Zaina, second in the Tour of Italy last year, is not going to get second place here unless he really tries to pull back these two flyers up in front. The damage that was done then by Jalabert and by Leblanc. But the main group behind has been perhaps now under pressure to close this gap down. The motorcycle has been told to come forward. You see the numbers there, 2-1 and 5-1, 21-51 shows that they're the team leaders of their particular squad. In with the best shout today. And the work being done then by Mercato Nuno, they've got to try and close that gap down for Pantani. And that there was Padenzana. And he's taken up at Bartoli, and there Zulla is just going to sit in the middle. Zulla's a very good climber too. He could take off if he gets towed up towards the leaders. It's all over the place at the moment. Giannetti also trying to close this one down too. Giannetti winning last, has won the Les Baston-Liège, the Amstel Gold a couple of years ago. Now on the front here. So Giannetti putting the pressure on the Swiss rider from just off the other side of the Italian border, with Zulla right behind him. Zulla won't do anything to aid that chase either. It looks like Pantani then probably hasn't got any left in his legs. Better they may have been from that crash. Otherwise I would have thought Pantani might be the man to move on this long, gradual drag. So it's Jalabert being left to do all the work. And here we are, this is the chase then. And that one man down the road is Zaina, I think, as Bartoli. Oh, they're coming up from behind as well. This is changing quite a bit. Suddenly there, we've got Benoit Salmon from the Lotto team. They're going to reel in Zaina now, I think. Zaina's stuffed. So Zaina's had it. And Salmon now going across, and look who's following on behind him. Zulla's there, and then Giannetti, and a big pack's coming up. Zaina's, I think, going to struggle a bit now, but to give perhaps Chiappucci, who I think is still in this group. I haven't actually seen the total composition of it or heard it on the old headphones, but Salmon now for Lotto. Has done his little bit, but it hasn't worked. And they're jumping around here. They've got to work, I think, a bit more cohesively than this to try and pull back those two men on the front. There's still some good firepower in that chasing group. And Zuller looking for an easy ride to go in there. Wasn't easy. They're all hammering along here about 30 miles an hour. A quick flick then. You saw him put his fingers through his brakes just to flick the gear. As Bartoli then settling down. Breuking's come up here. Well, he hasn't been doing much in recent years. He's a strong man, and perhaps now those strong men are starting to do what they can to pull back that breakaway group at the front. And Renault of the ASICS team just coming off there now, so Breuking can go through. Well, he's a great time trialist, sitting a bit low in the saddle, trying to close down that gap. The chase is on to try and pull back those two riders with just some 14.5 kilometres to go to the finish of this race. And the chase now being led by Bartoli, and the two riders down the road are these two here, Jalabert and LeBlanc. LeBlanc on the front at the moment, Jalabert just sat in behind him. Looking so calm. Jalabert rides with like a mask on his face. He doesn't seem to be suffering at all. Whereas LeBlanc, we get a chance to look at his face, is often looking like he's on the verge of falling off his bike. LeBlanc, coming back last year into the scene, had some 5 successes, stage victories in the Dauphiné Libéré and the Route du Sud, of course, a stage victory in the Tour de France as well on that 7th stage. So LeBlanc perhaps better at home in the higher mountains than we're in at the moment, but you see he's popping a blind. So the difference in these two chaps' faces. Look at the sweat pouring off him. And now have a look at Jalabert's face. We get a chance. Now the camera's come back behind him, but we did see it earlier on, that sort of calm mask on Jalabert's face, and LeBlanc absolutely puffing and spitting and panting and carrying on, fighting his bike and looking like he's really in a bike race, but Jalabert looks like he's going down on his bike to do a bit of shopping or something. Makes it look so easy, doesn't it? And we're back then with that chasing group. Of course, Zulla's going to do nothing about trying to catch back that leading group. Nice to see Pascal Lino in there, by the way, because in that back group, Lino has been going very well. If we have a chance to go, they're confident. That's him. Big Matt, Pascal Lino. So Lino's very strong indeed, and that's like a Berzing going through, and Rees as well. Well. And the Breuking and Vogard, there's good talent back here in this little chasing group. Bartoli is still in there as well. And a quick look at Jens Heppner's in this little one. Oh, there is Pantani. Hey. 211 Marco Pantani is absolutely, this is brinkmanship. He's sitting at the back of that group. Zulla's group, which they put Zulla in there. In fact, they shouldn't do that, I suppose, because Zulla rides with Jalabert. I would much more think they've got to put somebody else's name, like perhaps a Ronk, back in there, because Zulla's not going to chase down his teammate. But how about that with Pantani sat at the back of that group? Absolute brinkmanship. Just, he's either going to be first or 21st, I think, Pantani. I'm exaggerating, but he's got to wait for everyone else to pull these two back, and he's sitting in there, and that's typical of some of these mountain climbers. They wait, and then when the first thing it goes up, wham, they're away. I don't know, these two, they really are, I'd say, biting up more than they can chew, because some real talent in that group behind. Just depends how hungry they are for success. Jalabert taking over at the front. Well, I said that Luc Leblanc had about 5 successes last year. Jalabert had 15 wins last year. That really puts him up the top calendar of successes in the season. Thinking, can these two, though, keep going like this? If it had been Veronk up there, there'd been all hell let loose, because there's been no love lost between this little trio as far as Veronk's been concerned. And I think now LeBlanc is prepared to drive this one forward. They've made their move now. We're inside 10 kilometres to go, and still that gap, actually about 20 seconds, I suppose. I mean, they're both very useful climbers indeed. And of the two, I would rate Leblanc as being the better of the two climbers, but 20 seconds on the final climb up the Mur de Huy is not a lot, by the way. And so I suppose that that group coming on behind, provided they can keep it round about between 10 and 20 seconds, they might still suddenly swarm up the climb and catch these two. They've got to open up, I think, more than a 20-second lead. That's the UCI classification at the moment. I told you, with all the successes that Jalabert had last year, still up in number 1 on the UCI classification. They have this rolling 12-month classification, so they count back from now, back to the last 12 months. But Jalabert has come back into reasonable form of his rides in the Tour de Basque country, whereas Leblanc is really, I think, keeping his powder dry. He's probably got to ride a very hard Tour of Italy for his Polti team. And see how sideways he rides over on the right-hand side. There's his performance at Flèche Wallonne on the right-hand side, 27th and 18th, Luc Leblanc, who's sitting side saddle on his bike in front. And there's Jalabert's performances that you can see on your screen right now. Winner back in 1995, as I said to you before. And as they're now on similar territory, going over the same road, certainly another finish. And they know what they've got ahead of themselves. They've already been over the Mur de Huy a couple of times, and they're heading in towards the finish at Huy. And this is the main group behind. Yep, that's Baronk in this little group too. And also there's another useful character, Zula, but I think you've got to wait to see that the Mercaton Uno boys are really having to hammer along this one and just pull that back for Pantani. Again, if you have a chance to look down that bike, that front fork, there's red blade on one side, a blue blade on the other one. But these yellow colours are going to have to change when we get to the Tour de France, because they won't be allowed to ride in those colours like that. There's Veron just sitting in, Bartoli just going through, and Zaina, then there's Rees. It's that little bulge on his red jersey, that's his little pacemaker ticking away, and Jeanette's in there at the moment. Well, Pasqualino's just gone through, and looked like Jean-Claude Rabin from the US Postal Service has made his way through as well. And I think that might be Berzin at the back. Let's hope we can get closer to have a look at it. I think it is Berzin sitting at the back of this group. Still anybody's race. Jan Rees in the centre of this pack. And these are our two breakaways, and it looks like Jalabert is deciding, as we're getting in those final few kilometres now, what, about 6-7 kilometres to go, that he would like to try and wind this one up, but still the Polti rider Leblanc is with him. Heading in then towards Huy, that charming little village huddle at the foot of the climb then, and up the top there the fortress. It's at the confluence of the Meuse and the Huy, and it's part of the Liège province from 985 to 1789, and that has had about 30 sieges over its time and long sieges of destruction as well. But right now, who's going to win this one and destroy them? Well, that looks to me that Leblanc and Jalabert might have done enough then. 58 seconds, I said to you before that it could be, providing they were no more than 20 seconds away, they could be caught on the climb. But 58 is a lot to pull back on the run in toward the finish, and they're going here very quickly indeed. Through the Ardennes forest. They're working very well indeed, these two riders. So that might be enough. They've certainly worked very hard to stay away. Oh, well, Jalabert starting already to wind this one. I suppose, of course, he's recognising that there is a danger in taking Leblanc in towards the finish, because of these two, certainly I'd rate Leblanc as a better climber up that final run up towards the finish. We're a big crowd now waiting and watching anxiously on the screen. The Belgians in the crowd now disappointed they haven't got anybody. The Axel Merckx had been trying earlier on to do something about it, but not a chance now. It's between these two French riders, I would have thought. The gap then around about 40 seconds. and it could be enough for them to stay away. Well, we saw it happen over the weekend, didn't we? I said I wouldn't mention the Paris-Roubaix again, but Chamil and Moncassin were away, and they were looking at each other and jumping around, and the others came up very quickly indeed and caught them at the 11th hour, so they're going to have to watch here, these two. I don't think they're falling into the same trap. They're still sort of riding together. I'm surprised that Jalabert tested out LeBlanc, perhaps just to see if he could get rid of him. Jalabert looking so strong, so powerful at the moment. As they come into this race, being second overall in the Tour of the Basque Country, stage victor there as well for Jalabert. So that must put his confidence back again after that disaster in the Tour of Flanders, when suddenly he blew in no uncertain terms. A helicopter looking back down to the rivers, the flatland, where they'll come along and then up through toward the finish. These rolling hills of the Ardennes. Seen those tank battles during the Second World War, and there'll be more battles to come this Sunday, because Liège-Bastogne-Liège is the next event on Eurosport's coverage of cycling. So now into the outskirts of Huy, before they then turn and go up toward the top where the big crowd's waiting. Well, Jalabert, winner overall of the Paris this year. Great man when it comes to the shorter stage races. He won the opening time trial stage in the Paris, just a prologue of 7.1 kilometres. He took the lead jersey, kept it right through to the finish, so he's already shown in the season so far that he's been a man to be reckoned with. He also took the Tour of Mallorca to Jalabert. So of these two, the man with the biggest success so far is a fellow in the Oncé colours jersey, just going through the front. Where LeBlanc taking it somewhat easier, waiting really much more for the more hilly events and the big stages later on. The Tour of Italy and Tour de France is now here. These two men then in the closing stage of the race. Just 2.5 kilometres left then, and Jalabert and LeBlanc look like they could be well in then for the first and second place. The question is, which order will it be? The gap is probably around about 40 seconds now back to the main pack, but they can't relax just for a moment, because that climb they're going to come up to now, people like Pantani can rocket up that climb and close down something like 20-30 seconds, but it may be too great, the gap now, so it could be a victory between either of these two. LeBlanc not having won this race before in the past. Jalabert's certainly been a victor of the Flèche Wallonne. The question is who is going to take it this time round, and I'm sure if they keep this going they'll stay away, but they start pussyfooting about and making the other one take the lead and hanging on before they get that mountain. They're going to be absorbed by that fast-moving bunch, which contains some really top riders. There's Rees there, Veronk there, Zuller, Gianetti, I think Berzin's in there, certainly Pantani's in that little chasing group behind. Pascal Lino, not the world's greatest climber, but when they're going to turn on that final climb, then it may be that these two will survive and racing for first and second place. LeBlanc starts to move off the front. The gap 50 seconds, that's it, all over, bar the shouting. 2 kilometres to go. I'm sure they can't be caught now. Brilliant performance by these two. They took the chance, they threw down the gauntlet, and now they will see the blackboard showing. They've got that 50-second lead, and they'll think, right, that's enough. Let's sort out the tactics to see who's going to win this Flèche Wallonne, which dates back to 1936. One kilometre to go for the two leaders. The gap then 50 seconds. It's going to definitely be between these two. The question is, who's going to get it? I'm surprised actually LeBlanc has gone through to the front, because technically I would say he's probably the better of these two climbers, and he ought really perhaps to wait a little bit and then rushed at Jalabert. Jalabert, probably the more steady climber of these two. And we go back then to the World Championship in 1994, when Luc Leblanc won that one ahead of Claudio Chiappucci, dropping Richard Virenque in the process as well. Jalabert finishing, second in 1992, best known for finishing on the flatter part rather than going up into a climb. Leblanc, when he got his World Championship in 1995 at Agrigento in Italy, had to finish up a climb not dissimilar to this one too. So this sort of climb will suit Leblanc. The question is, how much work has he done so far this season? From like Jalabert, before he started racing this year, had done some 10,000 kilometres, about 6,000 miles, training through the winter. So he went into races like the Tour of Mercia and the Pyrenees in superb form. I haven't seen Leblanc's training programme, but I suggest that he's probably done a little bit less than Jalabert, because his hopes lie in races like the Tour of France and the Tour of Italy. Certainly Jalabert will look forward to riding in the Tour de France and winning it. He's now accelerating away up over, and so I think Jalabert knows now he's got Leblanc. I thought Leblanc, probably having had a lesser strong start to the season, will be the man to struggle. He's just done that now, and Jalabert, confident looking back here, showing that all that work through the winter has paid off for him. Last year, Leblanc had problems. He crashed in training, and he had a rather bad start to the year. I think that affected his morale somewhat. This year, he's been in superb form. He's riding away then from Luc Leblanc to take his second victory in the Flèche Wallonne. He's making it look so easy, so comfortable, so calm, so collected, and no doubt about it that this man took the opportunity. His team had controlled the race early on, let the other people go away, and when the time came for the junction, he then took off and rode so confidently in toward the finish. And Luc Leblanc then now knows that he's really in trouble behind Jalabert, but he should be able to hang on to his second spot, should Luc Leblanc. But the French then are going to be first and second in this race. When Jalabert won way back in 95, it was Fondres that was there in second spot. You see the yellow coloured there? That looks like Pantani now trying to come up there to try and take the third spot. Still then Jalabert on the front, riding triumphantly into the finish of the Flèche Wallonne in Huy. The sun beating down in April. We have some glorious weather for bike racing this season so far. Let's hope it stays like this for the Liège-Bastogne-Liège on Sunday. Jalabert punches the air right now. Watch out for this man on Sunday in the Liège-Bastogne-Liège. He's showing superb form after that great ride. He finished second in the Tour of the Basque Country last week, and now he's maintained that form to take the first spot in the Flèche Wallonne. Jalabert, his second victory in this event. The other one was back in 1995 as Leblanc hanging on here. The man's back, and I'm very pleased to see Luc Leblanc back. I say he probably started a bit slower this season with his form, but certainly he's got a second spot here in this classic Flèche Wallonne, and he looks absolutely all out on his bike. But congratulations to him. He's really ridden a hard race, and now he's going to get third spot then. Coming up there's Pantani back in that little group, but I think he's beginning to struggle now, and it could be Virenque that could burst through and take this one. It's in this Zuller. Zuller is going to be on, say, 1 and 3, as Bartoli struggles up behind here. Then it's Pantani coming through, but Zuller it is who rides in for Once. He couldn't attack that breakaway group because his teammate was riding in the first spot, but he takes third ahead of Bartoli. Then Pantani, Pascolino coming over behind him, and then Virenque it is who comes in after that. So the riders here then now know that Once have showed their dominance yet again by taking first and third place in the Flèche Wallonne. In fact, that is Virenque just coming in now. I think it must have been Duffield that came in for the Festina team just ahead of them, and they're coming over the line one by one. You can see the pain and the suffering on the face of Leblanc here. He really gave everything he got to stay with Jalabert. It was not enough in the end, and so the victory then will go to Jalabert in convincing and confident style. The rest of the competitors here start to come in dribs and drabs. Hello, the Sioux in full flight. Well, you almost make me think sometimes when you see the crowd hanging over the barriers, and inside the barriers there's another zoo going on with the bike riders who perform their acts of great magnitude and great pain and suffering in front of the spectators, but Jalabert on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side was LeBlanc. No, not the Seals, the chaps who just came first and second on the bikes. Another look then at the climb at the bottom of the finish line at Puy. As they came up here, Jalabert just looked back, recognised that LeBlanc was really struggling. Another little look again. It makes it look so easy, doesn't it? Well, we're going to, as you can see on your screen now, cover the Liège-Bastogne-Liège on Sunday. We're going to put out delayed by at 1700 hours, but we'll be there watching the whole proceedings. So I'll be able to update you not only as we see that last hour live on your screen, but tell you how the race evolved in the early parts as well. And I wonder if Jalabert can come in with a victory on Sunday. But certainly he's in superb form. There's a lot of riders who come into these two big events, the Flèche Wallonne and the Liège-Bastogne-Liège, to do well, because one more classic after that one, the Amstel Gold, is next to come, which we'll be showing on Eurosport as well. So we come off the cobbles, we come off the battering of the Tour of the Flanders. We're now back onto more normal roads, although they do go up and down quite a bit. And certainly Jalabert here has shown that he's ideally suited for this condition. Well, after this, we're going on to Sports Centre, and I'm sure that you'll hang on and watch that, and Eurosport as well. Stay with us for the rest of today. There's some tennis coming up as well after that too. So Eurosport as ever, bringing you the best in sport. My name is David Duffield. I look forward to your company on Sunday. Bye-bye.
Cycling was brought to you by Lieke Pilsner.